Talk Shoe. Recorded live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Community's Roundtable Podcast. This is podcast number 756. My name is Eric Nelson, and with me I have my regular co-host, Bob Plankers. Bob, looks like you're in a car today.
I am in a car. I've been known to drive places from time to time. I am in Denver at the moment, the beautiful city, mile-high city of Denver, visiting some folks. And it's having good conversations about security and things. So, just thought I'd drop in.
Yeah, cool.
Today?
I'm doing great. We got a big storm coming through California. The weather's been lightning. We had lightning on the campus yesterday.
Wow.
Like flash boom right there. I know the rest of the nation and around the globe, you guys get lightning all the time, but in California, I was wondering, I don't think I have any of my machines at home in Palo Alto on surge protection, right? And when I lived in Florida, let me tell you get a couple of lightning bolts like that, and everything that had a power supply, turned into a melted piece of metal, right? So, it's good. It's good. Let's do a drive by to Corey Romero and see how he's doing with the expert status and things up there in Utah.
Yeah, so we finally have snow today. It is actually dumping snow. I think the weather system that California had is finally hitting Utah. But yeah, we're finally getting snow. And
nice.
As far as vExperts, so we have vExpert applications going to be announced sometime tomorrow afternoon, maybe early evening on Thursday.
Nice.
A little bit of a delay. Just wanted to double check and make sure things were done correctly, and going through and double checking some of the declined applications and looking for any mistakes that we may have made on our side. Everything's done correctly.
I know it's always exciting, and this comes back to Bob a little bit. We only run the vExpert app twice a year to send out all the mails. And what's the likelihood of bit rot setting in or security problems with the email connectors and all that? Like the probability of all the mails going out to 1,000 different people correctly is 50-50, right?
Especially when you only do it twice a year,
exactly.
Right.
And we don't really have any trial run capability baked into the platform, so you either run it or you don't, right? There is no hey, let's put it in production and test out 1,000 rejections to everybody, right?
Yeah. What could go wrong?
Yeah, what could go wrong with that?
And the congratulations welcome email template has to be rewritten every year, right? For that next year. So I want to make sure we have the dates in there, all the information's correct, and just want to double check.
Yeah. And not only that, but now that we're at Broadcom, we get Broadcom reviews, right? We have different processes to get things out to everybody. So there's also that step right there. But exciting. I know a lot of work goes into everybody. Thanks to all the vExpert pros for doing all the reviews, and thanks for everybody getting their apps in. I know that we got a lot of. It takes a long time. Whenever you have over 300 of anything, going through a spreadsheet and doing that, and it's good to have everybody helping out on that. So appreciate that.
It is.
On the show today, we're going to be talking to Ryan Johnson. Ryan Johnson used to co-host the podcast back in maybe 2010 years. I don't even know when it was when you did the year segment. We got Ryan here. Yeah, we'll have to go back and look through episodes. I noticed that TalkShoe stopped keeping the old episodes around 356. So I'm not sure. You might have gone away of the cloud now, right? But we might still have some there. But Ryan, we're on the show. We're going to be talking about Packer and HashiCorp and IBM acquisition and what's happening with Packer, the automation tools that are popular for some vSphere users. So Ryan's here. He supports that plugin, so we'll talk about that. Before we do that, Bob, anything else that we need to cover? I know that Amsterdam Connect is going. They have over 250 through 260 reg already going to the events. So they're targeting 500, and I think they're going to probably make that number. So it should be a big event. If you're in Europe and you're thinking about going, go because everybody's going to be there. It's going to be a fun event. 2.5 days.
Then what's after that? Minneapolis. I'll be at Minneapolis. We'll have that first day, that day zero. Other thing.
Yeah.
To talk about security. Chris McCain will be there with me.
Yeah.
We're kind of becoming the hammer and anvil, or
Yeah.
Abbott and Costello, I think is what somebody called us.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that'll be fun, and a bunch
Yeah.
of people running around there. Certifications, get prepared to do
Yeah.
your certifications. If you
Yeah, we
haven't,
got confirmation that certifications are all going to be there, and
very cool.
yeah, I think they're doing it. I think you get half off or maybe even free during the event. I'd have to go Google that.
I thought
see
it was
which
part
it
of
is.
the registration. But
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Don't quote me, but I believe believe you get free certs while you're there. So why not bone up and do that? So
Yeah,
that'll be good. Yeah,
and
a lot
that's
of fun.
a registration ahead of time, I think, too. So because that's what
Right.
it was in St. Louis. So
Yeah.
if you sign up, you should, and you're interested, go pick a spot, get a slot in their schedule ahead of time here. So
For your certification, right? Because those will fill up, right? And hey, go register if you're listening to this. Go register so that you can get your slot and sign up, because I think Minneapolis is still not until April, but they have like 40 or 50 people registered already, and so getting those numbers up is always fun to see those numbers reg. So if you're thinking about going, go reg. Let them know. So,
well, that's a good time. It'll be warming up in Minneapolis too. If you're worried about the cold and all that stuff. Certainly, still not planting season if you're a gardener, but it'll be warmer, and that the snow will be melted and all that stuff. So,
right.
And then in Minneapolis.
Yeah, later there is a Toronto one, so you can also consider Toronto, and then I think Dallas, and then after that Explore, and then after that Orlando in November. So that's the schedule. Personally, I'm gonna wait till Orlando, and I'm gonna magically go to the Orlando one, because don't they have amusement parks,
roller coaster rides with me?
Yeah. That's right.
Excellent.
Turn me upside down.
Ryan, you're down in Florida, right?
I am. I used to live in Orlando. I'm in Tallahassee now, but maybe I'll come see you.
Nice. So Ryan, as always, we usually will do take a couple minutes. Tell me what you've done in your career and what do you do at VMware / in our ecosystem these days, and then we'll get into Packer and that kind of stuff. So give us an elevator pitch.
Yeah, so Ryan Johnson, I've been here. April will be 16 years for me.
Wow.
And I started back in 2010 as a technical account manager. We're doing a lot of work for customers across Florida, Central Florida, South Florida. And after a number of years, I went over into working in tech marketing for a little while, and followed that along to move over into engineering. And I was in engineering for about 9+ years, up until about mid last year, and made a change. Made a change, and I've gone back to the field, where I'm a technical adoption manager, staff technical adoption manager again. So I was a distinguished engineer while I was in engineering, and I've now gone back to kind of a customer success role, or as I like to say, the customer sidekick. And I'm dedicated to a particular customer, but I do a lot of things with infrastructure as code and automation, which is my passion, whether it's on the day job or even in my personal capacity. So yeah, that's
nice. I gotta ask you, like, having bounced around and coming from field into marketing, then into engineering, then back out to field, has anything changed in the field since you were there last time? Any aha moments, bigger enterprise customers, or things that you go, oh, this is different now, or is it basically the same?
I would say it's basically the same for me, particularly because when I was a customer, obviously I was talking to my customers, but when I moved into tech marketing and engineering, I still kept that, what I like to call that customer zero hat, right, on to talk to customers, and talk to them about the problems they're having. Have that sense of empathy, because where I come from, right, I haven't been in the field for forever. Even while I was in college and before, I just kind of put that hat on and think about what the problems they're trying to solve, and it really hasn't changed for me. And I think it's probably my perspective of how I approach things. Obviously, the tech stack is a lot bigger, for sure, and processes have certainly evolved, and technology has certainly evolved. But fundamentally, it's the same thing.
Do you feel like there's more immediate reward for your job now that you're in the field versus? I found that when I'm in engineering, I'd work on a project for a year and a half, and we'd finally do a release, and you would never get a lot of, for me, customer zero interaction because I was just a kernel engineer, right, for a lot of years at Sun. So I'm just wondering, do you feel more day-to-day satisfaction?
I would say, it comes and goes. Definitely daily, I speak to my customer and their teams and help them to solve problems, or I work on automation specifically for my customer and developing architectures for that automation for them. And the wins are pretty quick, right? And the interactions with the professional services and account team, and obviously customer is very quick. Sometimes when you're in engineering, right, and even tech marketing, it's a longer tail before you actually get to a release, and there's things that you can actually publicly talk about. I guess it all just depends on the day, but every day certainly is rewarding in the role today.
So Bob, since you've been quiet, I'll throw it to you. And do you wanna ask about Packer and Hitachi acquisition? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, well, maybe Ryan could explain Packer. I suspect there's a lot of people that actually don't know what Packer is and some of these tools and that. And Ryan, I know you've been deeply. It was nice to hear you say that. You've been really interested in this sort of stuff, the automation tools. Terraform all the Terraform stuff has got your name on it, the Packer stuff, and why don't you tell us a little bit about Packer to start with, because I think that the audience would benefit from that.
Yeah, let me kind of roll back a little bit just to kind of give me a little history from my perspective. Is when I was in engineering, and even as a customer, like we always talk about like automating things, right? How can you do things better and faster, right? And remove a lot of the toil and a lot of the human error.
Or even just do them the same,
Right. Do it the same, right? It's something repeatable, right? Automation was the way to go forward, right? And then, comes the concept of infrastructure as code, where, hey, I can define the state, right, or the configuration I want, and essentially plain text, whether it's a JSON or YAML or HCL files or whatever the configuration language might be, and say, this is what I want the state to be, right? Go do that thing, right? And a lot of tools were built around that space, right? You mentioned Terraform, for example, right? And there's Packer and even PowerShell, right? And Ansible, right? All these things kind of do those things, right? And kind of coming from engineering, right? When I was in engineering, I worked a lot on developing PowerShell modules for our Cloud Foundation customers. I worked on the Terraform provider for vSphere. Kind of took that as a project, which originally was actually was developed by HashiCorp and hosted by them. And last year, we actually transferred it over to Broadcom under our VMware GitHub organization. After many years of working with that team, what was May of 2025, I think it was, we transferred that over because we had put a lot of effort into developing that, and and now we have a product manager and a dedicated engineer working on the Terraform provider, and Broadcom owns and supports that, along with a slew of other Terraform providers. Packer is a little bit different piece. I like to say Packer is kind of like this unsung hero of the interwebs, right? When you think about the different types of cloud providers that there are today, whether it's on premises or public cloud, et cetera. At the end of the day, you customers need to create images, virtual machine images, some templates. They're golden templates, they're golden image for which they put an application on, right? And that could be Windows, right, of different variations. It could be a Linux distribution, whatever those guest operating systems are that they use, right? And traditionally, a lot of people would build those by hand, right? Whether they have, they just do it by memory, they do it by backup napkin, they have a run book, right? which are all very error prone, right? To be honest.
Yeah.
And not to mention, every now and then you'd want to take that and then update that, right? Say you have patches that come out, some specific date or interval, right? You want to pull those in and then update your image and then populate it back into your inventory so that your users or your operations teams can consume them. And so Packer kind of evolved from that perspective of how can I create what I'll call a manifested build infrastructure as code and describe, what operating system do I need? What do I want the configuration to be for that basic configuration? What kind of tools or settings do I need to do that might be defined based on, general practices? It might be some very specific practice for your organization or business, some security parameters, et cetera, right? Maybe you're trying to follow some NIST standards or CIS standards or what have you, right?
Sure.
But how can I define that? If I do it manually every time, I'm probably going to run into errors, right? So Packer gives you ability to define that as code and then build those images, and not only just build it once, you can build it multiple times using the same code. So if I have an image for, say, Ubuntu Linux for my specific generation of what I need, right? I can do that on a Tuesday, right? And say some new updates come out, or I want to rebuild it. I can just rebuild it hands off, all completely automated. I can put it to a CI/CD pipeline and automate the entire effect, and then have those artifacts land where I need them, where it's my vSphere clusters, whether it be into a content library. There's an additional project that I'm working on personally to put those into another distribution platform. More information on that come later. But that's what a lot of customers are doing. And whether it's you're using vSphere or you're using Fusion or Workstation, or if you're using a public cloud provider, Packer gives you that ability to do that. It's like a core engine to allow you to do that. And then there are plugins for Packer that are basically the interface between the core engine of Packer and then the cloud provider, right? Whether it's like vSphere, Fusion, Workstation, AWS, et cetera, right? And so there are these plugins that folks work on, and I specifically are working on the Packer plugin for vSphere, or commonly called now VMware/vSphere, also the Packer plugin for the VMware desktop hypervisors, formerly just called the VMware plugin. And I can talk about those in multiple different concepts. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool because, like you said, being able to reproduce this, being able to do the same thing. For me, it was always just about the same thing. Humans are, and you've kind of touched on this, and I'm going to be more blunt than you have been about it. You've been very nice about it, but humans are really bad at doing the same thing multiple times, in the same way. So doing, building an image and then porting it around, big pain in the rear. What if, what did I do last time? Do I patch this image or do I create a new one? How does this work?
Mm-hmm.
And so this solves all of that. That's really cool.
I think another interesting thing is not only just building these images, it's in some aspects, you might have an image you know and love and is a good basis, right? Is your kind of standard, and you want to make available, right? But you also want to make it available so people can actually use Packer again to take that existing image and add their flavor off a base image, right? Which is another
customize
cool
it
thing.
Sort of thing.
Exactly, and even using it to create appliances, right? So if you've ever seen like some of the like nested images, right? The nested appliances for ESX, those are actually built with Packer, right?
Nice.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm aware that we've got I guess I didn't realize it was Packer. I was aware that we have an automated build process for that, an appliance builder for that. But that's pretty cool that it's Packer on the back end. And then, like you said, the artifacts too. You know what's there. You've got documentation of what's actually in it. You can remember, what did I do last time? Well, it's in the artifact. You can open the file and see what you did.
And Packer's really, really cool from a perspective of the engine itself. not only does it have the plugins to work, let's say with directly with vSphere with the native API, and I'll talk a little bit more about where the projects are, but it also has the ability to use a lot of the tools you already consume. So if you write Bash scripts, right, or you write PowerShell scripts, you can use those to build your images, right? Pick the language that works for you, and they have different provisioners that can call shell scripts or PowerShell scripts, or what have you. The other nice thing is it integrates well with other configuration management systems. Let's say, for example, Ansible, right? So HashiCorp is obviously purchased by IBM. And IBM owns Red Hat, and there's Ansible and stuff like that. But the point being here is a lot of customers already use Ansible to do like configurations. So as you're building an image, right? Let's say you have specific guest operating system configurations you want to do. You want to put the patches on there. You want to make configuration changes for users and SSH keys and things like that. You can use existing playbooks, roles and playbooks that you have, or create new ones with Ansible and inject that straight into your Ansible, your Packer build processes.
Nice. Then you don't have to do that after the fact, and that's, I guess, a philosophical debate whether you should do it after deployment or during it. But, the flexibility to be able to choose is really nice. So
I like to say, why not both, right? So
well, that's the thing. Why choose?
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
Hey, well, and if you don't like it one way, you do it the other way. Like it's flexible. All you've cost is a little bit of time, especially if it's all automated. You just you change it and fire it off again.
Yeah, I find a lot of customers don't necessarily haven't used Packer. I mean, Packer is an open source project, right? So it's fairly available. You can use the project and get started. Whether it's a simple brew command to install it, or a scoop, or Chocolatey, or wherever you want to pull it and start to play with it. In fact, for customers that use vSphere and VMware Cloud Foundation, there's actually a project on GitHub that I started probably about 4 or 5 years ago. It's called Packers, on github.com/VMware. It's under Packer examples for vSphere, where I actually have a lot of well-produced documentation and examples for if you're just getting started and you've never used it and you want to see what the power of Packer is and what it can actually do. It gives you kind of like, here's an example, right? A whole set of examples, and with tons of different guest operating systems, whether it's Alma, Rocky, Ubuntu, Oracle, Linux, Fedora, Rail, right, and SUSE, etc. Not to mention all the Windows and different variants. Here's examples of how you can do that, right? Patch, update, use Ansible as well, right? And then some examples of how to integrate it, and even using it with a Terraform provider. So there's that project. It's got somewhere just south of 1,000 GitHub stars on it. It's one of the
nice.
one of the, I think it's the top 5 of our GitHub projects on our public GitHub projects on the VMware org. So if you haven't used it, or you have challenges using Packer, right, or you want to use Ansible, take a look at that project, right? And I have found cloud providers that I've talked to recently that are actually using that project. I have found people internal to Broadcom that had been using that project for years, which is a little humbling, but it's also really cool to see as well.
That's really fun. It reminds me of the PowerShell by William Lamb, right, where he just set up GitHub and put a bunch of examples up there, right, and just saved everybody time and money, their time.
Yeah.
So
one
just
person figures it out,
Yeah, github.com/VMware/Packer examples-4-vSphere. Tony Foster put it in the chat for us, but just if you're listening to this on iTunes and you want to go check it out, that's the URL. So there you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I should mention, since you mentioned the GitHub URLs, one thing I like to mention is, after many years of working with both the Terraform team at HashiCorp through open source, as well as the Packer engineering team, developed a really great relationship with the core maintainers and engineering managers while I was in engineering. And over that time, I was lucky enough to become the core maintainer on our Terraform provider, as well as the two Packer plugins. And I mentioned earlier that Terraform provider transferred over in May of last year to Broadcom on our GitHub org. And as of January 27th of this year, both the Packer plugin for vSphere and Packer plugin for the VMware desktop hypervisors transferred over from HashiCorp / IBM directly over to our GitHub organization. So now these are Broadcom originated and originated projects and developed in the open, right? And in fact, as of yesterday and today, there have been 2 releases for the Packer plugin for vSphere.
Nice.
And released yesterday after 6 months plus of development that I've worked on and refactoring it. There was a bug that was described this morning. Within an hour, I tracked down the issue and issued a patch release for version 2.1.1. And next week, fingers crossed, I'm hoping to release. It's in open. So it's nothing full transparency because it's open source. I'm hoping to release version 2.0 of the Packer plugin for the VMware desktop hypervisors, which has a considerable amount of refactoring of the original work done by Mitchell Hashimoto,
Nice.
and building off that.
That's really
Nice.
cool. Well, and your comment about developing in the open, I think there's, that's certainly a different model, and and people get to see. Well, it's getting to see the sausage being made, as the saying goes, and that there's a lot of interesting stuff that goes into development like that. You see people's mistakes, and folks like yourself have to be willing to make mistakes out in the open. And I think it's both humbling, as you noted earlier. It's humbling, but it's also I think it's good for people to see that, that there's it's not magic powering the stuff, like you're not some supernatural. Well, you might be some supernatural human. The amount of code you put out is supernatural sometimes, but the and your dedication to these things. But like you put your pants on the same way all the rest of us do, which over our heads, of course. But it's just it's good for people to be able to see this stuff. And,
So I have a question. I have actually 2 questions. I've been, probably. One is an easy one. What language are you writing the plugin in? Right, like I assume it's compiled.
That's a great question. So all Packer, I'll say Packer and Terraform and a lot of the projects that are developed by HashiCorp in the plugins are all written in Golang, right, or just commonly known as Go, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So is that compiled, or can I read it? It's compiled, but it's open source, so I can go check it out if I wanted to. But right.
Absolutely, it is
Right,
open source. It's very human readable. It's actually I think rather easy to learn. And for me, it was pretty easy to learn. In fact, I say Python was easier. Python's been easier for me to learn after doing Go. All right. We compile it. It creates a binary that you can. It's all encapsulated.
Yeah.
And we use for the plugin. So yeah.
All right. So next question, a little bit harder, which is the HashiCorp acquisition. Obviously IBM bought Red Hat, right? So and they've done well by Red Hat, right? They bought now HashiCorp. Any concern of long-term support of Packer itself? I know you're doing obviously the plugin into vSphere, but like, what's your impression of the acquisition and the stability of Packer as an automation tool?
Well, it speaks directly to the acquisition. I think the acquisition is great. HashiCorp has an amazing portfolio of these infrastructure as code options, and we see a lot of customers using things like Terraform and Packer and even Nomad and other things on top of the platform. I specifically love talking about Terraform and Packer because they're kind of near and dear to me. And when I was an engineer, I talked to customers all the time, right, about it. And it's been I see it as very, very healthy to building that ecosystem. Like I said, I still communicate a lot with the core engineers and core maintainers. They are so super responsive and helpful. Even today, when I was tracking down an issue, which happened to be in the Packer plugin SDK, immediate synchronous chats that were very super supportive and responsive, and it's been really good working with them. So I haven't seen any issues. And then of course you look at now with Ansible right there, it's even kind of that better together story, right? How can you use things like Terraform and Ansible together, and Packer and Ansible together? So it really builds a better ecosystem to help meet customers where they are.
Did Red Hat purchase Ansible originally, and now it's part of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
So Red Hat acquired Ansible,
Right,
IBM acquired Red Hat.
Right.
It's
all together. Okay, I just want to understand that, make sure I had that in my head correctly. But okay, that works. Well, those are the two that I kind of you always get a little nervous. When Broadcom bought VMware, there's always a little bit of nervousness of where it's going, and are they reharvesting everything, and or are they keeping it going, right? And it makes sense that they had Ansible, and now they bought HashiCorp, and there goes that. I know a guy that runs community, Marius, used to work at our team, and he works over at IBM. And when they acquired HashiCorp, they selected all of the HashiCorp community people to run IBM's community, and so Marius left IBM because of it. But they have a particularly strong community program, right? And then IBM picked up those people. Right.
Yeah, the hugs, right, or the HashiCorp user groups is very big, and I actually got an email about them continuing and making modifications to that. So hopefully there's some good news there. I would like to just quickly say, because everything is in the open, and we're on a community podcast here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about like the development of these programs of these tools, what I'd like to underscore is we're on a community podcast here, but open source is a community, right? It's built a lot of times.
Right.
You might have people that are paid to do it, right, or people that are volunteering their time to do it, right? A lot of the work I do for these are actually outside of my that
was going to get to my next question, but I'll let you finish first before I ask you how your bosses are dealing with this dual role.
Well, So what's nice is I believe in the power of community, right? And these are supported by the community, right? There's core maintainers like myself. There's some other people that dedicate their time, right? Because these are very important tools, and customers and even Broadcom leverage things like the Packer plugins to deliver solutions and operating systems, right? But it is about the power of community, and looking for individuals who are interested in helping to shape that, right? And you can get involved in a open source project in so many ways, right? I've seen people kind of come and go, and people get interested, whether it's, you find a bug, right? You have an idea for an enhancement, right? You want to help and write some clearer documentation, right? Or maybe you actually do know how to develop, or you're interested in learning and want to introduce yourself and say, hey, I have an issue, or I got an idea. I'd like to help work on this issue, right? And talk to the maintainers in the open, right? Like we use GitHub discussions, right, for these projects. So you can actually, hey, I have an idea, or hey, I need help, or I need to open an issue, a bug, right, or an enhancement idea. And it's the power of community to help drive that, and not just wait for the maintainers to develop it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw out an issue, and magically, Broadcom's going to go make that happen, right? A lot of this happens in the open, right? And it might not be just the day job of those maintainers, right? And they dedicate their time, they dedicate some of their personal time to it. But you can say, hey, I've got an idea for it. I would like to work on that feature, right? Or I would like to help you with this project. And you start to build that trust and rapport in that community to work on it. So, I would say if there's anyone listening here, the podcast, or even in the vExpert community, if they're interested in helping to support, right, or learning how to support, say, the Packer plugin, the two Packer plugins, yeah, more than welcome to have conversations and have you join us and have those conversations. So yeah, it's about the power of the community.
Yeah, we were.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to underscore one point that Brian made here too, is that you don't have to code either. These projects need a lot of different stuff. They need somebody to update the websites. They need documentation. Documentation is often one of those things that needs some of the most help sometimes in some of these projects. And so, there's lots of ways to help, even if you're a little shy. People tend to be a little shy about coding, and a lot of ways to work your way up into it, like you were saying too, and have the community help get you up into the community itself, and so
I will say it also really helps you. Not only that, you build your your commit graph, right? You actually start to contribute to it. But one thing is not only just building, interacting with the community, but you're also building skill set, right? So if you're say, you want to be better at writing documentation, you want to start to learn Go, or you want to start learning infrastructure as code, or even better, right? In some respects, learning how to use Git, right? How to properly use Git, how to commit, learn how to use those commands and not just rely on, drag and drop because, you get me started. But those are actually core skills that if you are interested in working with large organizations that want to do infrastructure as code, right? Yeah. There's kind of fundamental key things that you need to learn how to do. And they are transferable, whether you're doing it in open, right? You're doing it inside your own company, or if you want to move to different open source projects. Those are key fundamental skills. And it's what got me really interested in starting working in open source and even developing some of my own open source projects that I work on. So.
Yeah, it's neat. I was having a conversation with some guys this morning about Burning Man and the fact that Burning Man is actually just a big community and that they don't actually require a currency, right? Everybody goes to Burning Man, sets up a village, and then you give away stuff, right? Whether you're giving away coffee or giving away alcohol or giving away an experience, reading books, whatever it is. And we talked about, like, what does it mean? Why do community people give? What is that like, and what's that feeling, and why does that grow? And I don't know if it applies to Burning Man, but I do know that, like, if I'm writing code and then I realize that somebody else is writing that same code, that I can maybe just use what they're writing, right? And then maybe I write a piece of it and I join a group. So instead of writing the whole thing, I only need to write little bits of it, and I contribute my little bits, and everybody contributes their little bits, and then you have a more effective, less writing code experience, right? And
I love that. I love that kind of aspect. When we work on our open source projects, a lot of times there's more than just one maintainer. If you're lucky, right, and you have people that you can collaborate with, and hey, I might take this piece of code, this core piece. Someone might take the other piece, but at the end of the day, we start to do reviews for each other, right? And each person has a different kind of background and history and aspect. And what I have found, it's really kind of cool to see. And I did this when I was in engineering. I was a big believer in being a force multiplier and taking the skills that I knew how to do and kind of teaching other people how to do it. Where there's even some developers, that I work out of our Sophia office who have picked up kind of the habits that I've developed and now do that on a daily basis, right? And it's really kind of cool to see that happen. And then as you start to work on the projects, everybody's talking the same language, right? Which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
It becomes a community unto itself, right? A project definitely does, right?
And there's a sense of trust, and in open source, I'll be honest, in open source, are there disagreements? Yes, right. But that's the cool thing. You can fork them off or do different things. But it's also about consensus and what's right for the project, right? Or you have to figure out, and I won't lie, even in open source there can be what I call maintainer burnout, right? Where you feel like everything's on you to deliver, and everybody's kind of coming at you, and you spend a lot of personal time on it, right? So that's where you have to look for the community to come and help lift you up, and people to say, hey, I'm willing to take that and help. So again, if there's people in the community here that want to help, God, I would love to welcome people with open arms to help make these projects even better. So
nice, yeah. Bob, I'm gonna do the traditional. We've been going for 40 minutes now. I typically would ask, like, where do you see it going? What excites you, Ryan, like, as we move forward? But Bob, do you have anything else before we transition into blue sky, Ryan's blue sky, mind? What else do we need to pick apart here?
Well, I think this has been a good introduction. I had a question early that popped in my mind earlier, and my brain is weird. I got to think about what I was going to say. So if I wanted to get started with Packer, to go back to Packer, if I wanted to get started with Packer, what do I need? This is all compiled in Go. I need a Linux box to do this. Can I do it on Windows? If I'm a Windows guy, can I do it on a Macintosh?
You can get started with Packer on any of your traditional operating systems, whether you're using Linux, Windows, or Mac, right? You can use the package manager of your choice, whether it's Brew, right, on your Mac, or you want to do a curl and install it, right? Or you want to scoop or chocolatey. You
do it manually. My package manager's name is Bob, that sort of thing.
You can absolutely do that, right? I encourage people to use the right tools or for your IDEs or editors, right? Visual Code is perfect for it. Yeah. Obviously, I happen to be a Golang guy when I do Go, because I've kind of graduated from doing Visual Code to using Golang, which by JetBrains, which, by the way, JetBrains was actually the original author of the vSphere plugin. They donated it to HashiCorp, and then HashiCorp actually transferred it to us. So it's kind of like it's kind of paying homage to that. But you can run it on any operating system, and it works with the plugin. The plugin works with I'm going to say vSphere 8 and higher, right? It does work with older versions of vSphere. Let's just say 7, but your mileage may vary if you're still using that. It does require vCenter because we're using the API, right? Which we encourage you to do. It actually leverages the Go vMommy project, which is also open source, which is the Go-based SDK for vSphere that I also happen to work on in some of my free time, right? Nice. Yeah.
Very cool.
All right.
And just to recap, you can find all of this stuff out in the GitHub repositories for VMware. Go out to github.com/VMware and just search for Packer, and you'll see
absolutely 100%. If you go to github.com/VMware, you go to repositories, type in Packer in the search, you'll come up with three repositories: Packer plugin for vSphere, Packer plugin for VMware with the desktop hypervisors, and Packer examples for vSphere. And yeah, you can find that. You'll find discussions, right? You can create issues, etc., documentation, and the like. And come join us. Help make it a better community. And and obviously, if there's a code of conduct, be respectful, and that's what the community is about.
Always. That's all.
Nice. All right, so we'll transition to the last 10 minutes of the show. Ryan, we always ask our guests, like, what excites you either in Packerland or in tech in general as we come into, we're into 2026 now. We're at February. You got the rest of the year in your mind. What excites you?
When it comes to the Packer projects, right, and working on those, I like working on those. I've put a lot of effort into making those more stable and be more aligned with current practices in the language and the current capabilities of the Packer engine. Looking forward, I can say for the Packer plugin for vSphere, we just had the 2.1.x releases this week. I have a slew of updates that I am starting to work on. I think one of the PRs is around 8,000 lines of code that I need to finish my testing on. Those are going to be looking at there's a concept of ability. Where Bob and I were talking about, like, you can take an existing image, you can clone it, right? Clone it and kind of make changes to it. I'm looking to add changes to support remote OVA and OVFs, local OVA and OVFs, as well as pulling them out of a content library. Those are key features that I'm looking to add, as well as some additional disk configurations, more enhanced disk configurations that customers can use. And I'm also kind of the next thing that has recently kind of come into the Packer ecosystem is the concept of data sources, similar to how there are data sources for Terraform providers. This last 2.1 release had its first entry, which was a community contribution for a data source for virtual machines. I'm currently working on the branch is literally there to support a lot more data sources. So I'm working on that, specifically on the vSphere plugin. On the desktop, on the other plugin, it's called Packer Plugin VMware. We will have a 2.0 release coming for hopefully next week, depending on my testing and my availability. So mileage may vary, but look, there's a preview on the repository under discussions. That it's going to be a major update for 2.0.0. That is actually going to remove support for direct ESX, because we have the vSphere plugin and we want to use the API, so we don't need to have it managed too, right? It doesn't make any sense. So we're going to remove support for direct ESX in that one, and it's going to support specifically desktop hypervisors, being Fusion and Workstation. It removes support for like VMware Player, right, out of there. Kind of remove a lot of some of the cob. Absolutely, and that was quite a big effort, and a lot of refactoring just to make the code more stable, and then looking to continue support and keep that plugin cranking along with how Fusion and Workstation are now on kind of like the year half trajectory. We have a 25 H2, right? We'll have probably a 26 H1 or H2, how that comes. Be able to ensure that those continue to support, and I would hope in the future be able to, as the engine for Fusion and Workstation change to the VM CLI, be able to support that integration and be a more restful interaction. Outside of that,
that was the longest list
for a little bit.
That was the longest list of anybody I've ever interviewed on 700 podcasts. When I ask, what are you looking forward to 2026? I usually get like a comment or two, but we got like a list of like 40 things. Here, yeah, that's right.
I have a lot of things that I'm working on. I have another I do have another project where I'm working on. As you build images, right, for vSphere or Fusion Workstation or other places, right? And you want to put those in a secure location, right? A lot of customers use specific, I'll call package managers, right? And I'm working on something that kind of look at how you can take those images and securely transport those from build to a central place that can be where those can be consumed, and that's based on some direct aspects.
Nice.
But yeah,
no, that's pretty cool.
I got it.
You can also run like a SHA-256 hash on them too to be able to prove that they're
exactly. That's exactly what I'm looking at. And then outside of that, man, I'm in the Ansible. I develop Ansible. I'll develop Ansible stuff on a day-to-day basis. So all kinds of stuff I'm working on.
I got to ask you, this is kind of a personal question. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but like, do you have a significant partner in your life? Or are you completely single?
Yeah,
because if you have one, you need to go give them a hug or something, because they probably never see you. Right? Like, that's all I can say about that. Right? Like,
I'm very blessed with my wife and my two.
You need to go give her a big hug and tell her that Eric and the community thanks you for putting up with your second love, which is clearly writing code and automation, and open source, right, projects, because that's
everything's a balance. Sometimes you have to know when to say no and turn away things, and I'll just say I've done enough on that. I'm gonna go turn over here and play my guitars, or I'm gonna go for a run, or I'm gonna go over here and watch Billy Bob Thornton on Landman, right, or what have you.
Yep, it's all trade-offs. So I have a question for you. We do live stream now on youtube.com/vbarbecue, VBARBECUE. You can go give us a like and a follow. I noticed we got you on camera, Ryan. You got a bunch of stuff in the background there. I can't tell what it is. It almost looks like one of those things you ride on, a Segway or something, but it must not be. What's in your background?
In my background, there's about five guitars, a bass, and a Concept 2 rower, Concept 2E rower, cool. And a Concept 2 biker as well. So,
nice. All right, there you go. So you can check him out if you want to see what Ryan looks like and what his little ecosystem looks like behind him. You can go to youtube.com/vbarbecue. We put up all the live streams there. And then finally, VBarbecue Report, as we come up to the top of the hour. You're in, where'd you say, Tampa? Where?
I'm in Tallahassee.
Tallahassee, the other T, right? Tallahassee. Yeah. Do they let you go outside and barbecue in Florida? Is it something you ever get to do? And if so, what do you do? And if you don't, do you have a favorite barbecue restaurant?
A minimum of one gator. You got to barbecue one gator a year or something. Yeah.
My favorite barbecue place. We're at a drought right now, so but yeah, at home it's like one of those flat grill things that my wife uses. Barbecue place, Four Rivers, here in Tallahassee, but they're based out of Orlando. So if you're in Orlando in November for the UserCon.
UserCon. Yeah, sure. Yeah, connect.
Go check out Four Rivers. There's several of them in the area. They started out of Orlando area. I think Altamont Springs, but my favorite barbecue. Nice. All right, there you go. Tony Foster, talk about barbecue. Are you? Is it too cold to do barbecue yet?
Oh, no. Kansas has been in the 70s the last week. We've been enjoying it. Yes. So.
All right. There you go.
I did surf and turf for Valentine's Day.
Nice. That's very good. Very good. I am doing a party. We have 50 people coming over this weekend for a 50th birthday party. And so I'm just going to go buy 10 tri-tips, right? And do them on charcoal, right? And then easy, but a favorite, right? Because you just put salt and pepper on them and you just put them on charcoal. Make sure you have a temperature probe so you're not overdoing them. I'll do some well done, some medium, and some what I call raw, bloody, and those are always good. You put them on cutting boards, and you go down to Safeway and buy 10 or 20 loaves of white bread, and slice it up, and they make yummy sandwiches, right? So we'll do a little standard tri-tip for sandwiches and a bunch of other food, but that's the base of it. Anything else?
I'm good here. No, this has been terrific. Thank you for being on, Ryan. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, and especially about this stuff. This stuff is super interesting to the whole community. So thank you.
And Ryan, are you on Twitter or X, as we say, or anywhere else that somebody should follow you?
No,
GitHub.
Pretty much, yeah. You go to github.com/1030am. 1030 a.m. Spell it out. TENTHIRTYAM. That is me. That or LinkedIn is how you can find me.
Awesome.
I don't do X.
The social media anymore. Yep, that's given up. All right. Well, it is lunchtime here in California. So thanks a lot for coming on, Ryan. And for those people that were on live stream, thanks for saying hi in chat. And again, we'll be back again next week. We got a guest scheduled. I forget who it is already, but next week we got somebody else, and we'll keep on going for the rest of the year. Good times. Okay. Yep. Tony, thanks a lot. Corey, good to see you, and we'll be back in next week. Until then, go get some barbecue.
Of course.
Take care.